Imagine, if you can, you're sitting inside the Fuzzy Wars Industries Discord server late one night, talking to a new friend. They bring up that they have some old Dart Zone crossbow blaster. There's only one old Dart Zone crossbow blaster you can think of, a blaster you've been searching for quite some time. The Hawkeye. Sure enough, they post a picture, and it is the blaster that you've been looking for in all of its glory. So it does exist, you say to yourself. But this reminds you of another old Dart Zone blaster you have been searching for but haven't been able to come across. In fact, anytime you've looked on eBay, Amazon, just the internet in general, very little information comes up, let alone a buy listing. But this time, the stars align. Or do they? You actually find a buy listing on Amazon for the blaster you've been searching for. However, it comes at $70 US, more than triple the MSRP of the blaster when it was released. And you know it's probably not worth that much. But you buy it anyway because this is Tag Back, the show where every week we take a look at a blaster from the past to see what it can offer us today in the present, and this time! It's the Dart Zone Quickfire Powerstrike 24. Information out there on this blaster, let alone videos, especially one recently, so I'm a little excited to take a look at this, and unfortunately that means I have to open a old budget blaster from 2012 that I paid $70 for that I'm sure a bunch of 8-year-olds are going to tell me they have like 60 of them sitting in their garage that they don't use, or some other fib like that. But for real, I've looked several times for this blaster. I've never been able to find one, not even a sold listing. Probably because it doesn't say anything about the Powerstrike 24 or Quickfire, whatever you want to call it, on the blaster anywhere, which makes it incredibly hard for people who don't have the packaging or know of the blaster to write in when they are selling it. So this is one of those things that's, I think, rare, but could be incredibly common. All I know is there was actually 2 of these for sale, and when I posted the link in the Discord channel, somebody else was gonna buy one pretty much immediately, and that's when I realized I should probably pick one up myself. And you heard me right. The Quickfire Powerstrike 24. That might remind you of this thing. The Powerstrike 48. An air zone blaster, but still actually a Dart Zone blaster, I think. I'm not entirely certain. They are very similar blasters, but of course this one holds 48, and was also a pretty rare and obscure blaster when I finally got my hands on one, and since then, thankfully, it's gotten a lot of the recognition it deserves, because this is a really cool flywheel blaster, where the trigger doesn't do anything, but every single time you pump it after you turn it on, it fires a dart at it, indexes darts out of these cylinders, and it can hold 48 of the included darts, which I've never gotten my hands on, but thankfully now, I have them. And I have the blaster that is supposed to be the inferior version of this. I'm gonna try to be as careful as possible opening this thing up, but this is probably gonna be one of the few, at least recent videos of this blaster. The Quickfire Powerstrike 24. Rotating barrel, 24 darts included, and they're actually already inside the blaster, which is incredibly odd, especially that one that's like almost inside the flywheels already. On the back of the box, it doesn't actually show us a heck of a lot. It says 24 foam darts, Quickfire Powerstrike 24. Rotating barrel, 24 darts included. Battery-powered rotating barrel, pullback action for rapid fire, easy-to-load dart channel, and 24 darts included. They're really pushing that. There's not a whole lot more on this box. It does require 4 AA batteries. And thankfully it's held in by these twist ties, so I should be able to unbox this thing and hopefully put it back, because the last thing I want to do is lose the box and have this thing just sitting around in a bin for the rest of its existence, because I don't know if I'm ever going to have the hearts to do anything with it, especially with its proprietary kind of ammo. somehow I'll get this back in the package. Oh, it has really detailed instructions inside, but I can't get those out without destroying the box, so unfortunately, they're gonna have to stay in there. What an interesting blaster. This one has been around for a long time. It's got a little scuff mark right there. Otherwise, it looks like it might be comfortable. And you know what? Kinda is. Battery compartment on that side, and to be honest, when I first saw this thing was about when I first got into the hobby, it reminded me kind of like the assault rifle from Halo. It clearly isn't, but I don't know, maybe if you hit yourself in the head with a hammer, you could kind of see what I was talking about. Just maybe. Man, this one is scuffed a little bit. Access door right there. Doesn't have nearly the same cool flywheels that the Powerstrike 48 has, but this one does have a functional trigger whose only purpose is to unlock the slide so you can pump it, which is really bizarre. At least this trigger actually does something, unlike the Powerstrike 48's, which is a complete joke of a trigger. It is just a solid piece of plastic. Stickers on both sides. On-off switch right here. Thankfully, this thing's brand new, but let's hope it actually works, or else this is going to be a very short video. Only the best for you. Amazon Basics. It's always bad juju to put the battery door back in before you test it, but... well, listen to her purr. Alright, so no range claims or anything. I'm not expecting a whole lot, but pull down the trigger, pump it back, rotates the cylinder, pump it forward, and it fires a dart. That actually wasn't half bad, to be perfectly honest. That was, I would say, acceptable, even. And yes, it holds 3 darts per cylinder and uses a kind of weird indexing mechanism with some teeth in here. Well, I don't really want to open this, but thankfully the other person who did buy this already did, so you can kind of see the internals here. It's got a track, and every single time that you pump it, it actually folds down these teeth, and then when you pump it forward, it indexes those teeth forward and just kind of conveyors the dart into the flywheels while also indexing the cylinder. That's how this thing kind of works, and that's also how the Powerstrike 48 works, which is a pretty ingenious system, but the problem actually stems from these darts. These are weird darts. They've got not very good foam bodies and these weird rubber heads that don't quite work. And this and the Powerstrike 48 are the only blasters I know of that use these kinds of darts. But the biggest problem is they're quite a bit shorter than your standard foam dart, which is really annoying. This thing will index other foam darts. The problem is they're only going to fit 2 of them per cylinder with a bunch of empty space, unlike using the included darts. The next best thing, however, would be the Buzzbee stickies that will fire out of this thing somewhat well. This one does look like it might actually be a lot safer, I would say, to fire other darts. That's definitely something we'll have to try to see if it will do. Because the Buzzbee... because the Powerstrike 48 had a problem with just dump darts out everywhere, but this one looks like it'd be slightly better about it. 53.4? 53.1? 49.8? 51.8. Now, when this blaster came out, Vortex was already a thing, and I'm sure if Elite wasn't already out, Elite was coming. So that's not the best numbers ever, but that's certainly usable, especially compared to N-Strike ranges. So not a whole lot to hate about that. Let's see what this thing actually does at range, and I also want to see how fast you can dump darts out of it, because if it's anything like the Powerstrike 48, and it certainly feels like it, it's going to be a monster about that. I'm impressed. I really thought this might be worse than Powerstrike 48, and it's actually better. One of the biggest changes about this blaster is that the little dart retention mechanisms in the cylinder are way better than the ones in the Powerstrike 48. I have two Powerstrike 48s, and both of them, basically, if you put a standard elite dart in there and shake it, they'll fall right out of the cylinders and jam it all up. That's not the case with this blaster, and that's a very, very good change that I'm certain this blaster came before the Powerstrike 48, so I'm a little confused about that, but still, it's a good blaster because it is a flywheel blaster using, you know, pretty typical flywheel size cage and so forth. This would be moddable to bring up to some pretty serious potential when it comes to like a super stock blaster or something like that. The main modifications that would probably need to be done is the battery compartment is way too small for most conventional LiPos. You would probably have to create a new battery box somewhere on it, or just Velcro a LiPo to it. The trigger lock thing with the on-off switch, that's a bit annoying. The trigger itself actually being a trigger is somewhat interesting, but it's just a locking mechanism, which I don't really see any benefit to. It would be cool to just convert it to work, you know, when you push it back, it also revs the blaster, and then you can pump it to fire. The pumping action is really good. For some reason, pumping forward to fire a dart just works, and since it's basically slam fire, you can slam fire it as much as you want, but since there's no like catching or spring load or anything like that, it's really easy for you to just time your shots. It's different, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's bad. And for some people, especially if you're more of a rushing player, that's going to be far more intuitive to pump and move your body in the direction of where you're trying to fire, as opposed to holding it out here or up here like this and trying to fire like that. That whole body motion is something that some people really do well with. I know some people back in the day would modify things like the Arrow Storm from NERF, the old vintage one, and make those really powerful because, like, while it was no trigger blaster, it had a set point where you could prime it and then release it so you could still time your shots. And that's something the Powerstrike 24 definitely lends itself to. It's a remarkably good blaster. Had I had this in 2012, it would probably still be one of my favorite blasters. If you put normal darts in here, you do cut its capacity down to 16, but since it only usually requires one dart to tag somebody out anyway, yeah, I can see this work. A lot of people don't understand why I don't really like magazines. I just don't like having to deal with filling that kind of stuff up. Topping this thing up off the fly, you would have to index it one shot over, and even if you were, you'd have to obviously have blank spots if you were just loading one or two darts in, or trying to fill up just the cylinder like that, but it's manageable is what I'm trying to say. I like it. Now, unfortunately, this one, since they're kind of hard to come by, in fact, I've never been able to find one for sale, I've never seen one at any kind of event I've ever gone to, I've never seen anybody in the community really talk about this blaster, I'm going to put it back in its package, and I'm going to put it up on my shelf, and it's going to live there, and maybe in the future I'll come across another one that I feel comfortable destroying and, well, modifying, but at this point, I think we're just going to keep this where it is. It doesn't really work with half darts or anything like that because of the way the indexing mechanism works. It could technically be used as a two-dart shotgun kind of thing, but that's a real big if. I mean, with the mechanics of how it's going, you'd always have two darts left in the chamber that you couldn't use anyway, so you can just put a spacer back there. But it's still an interesting design. It actually works better than the Powerstrike 48 in some cases. It honestly looks really cool in my opinion. It's definitely too big to really use as a secondary, but at the same time it's extremely thin, so having this kind of slung on your body using this one little point right here that I can think of where you could put a sling would work. The paint application is pretty much non-existent. There's a little bit of gray paint inside the foregrip and then a little bit of red paint up at the top of the blaster, but every single other piece of color is either another piece of plastic or a sticker. They used a lot of these red stickers on this blaster to try to give it a little bit more pop to it, and honestly, on this example, they're not very well placed. I want to thank the patrons who made this video possible, not only bringing Tag back, but also lending me the funds, of course, to buy stuff like this and preserve it, because there really hasn't been a lot of information on these, and now we have one. And now I can, if I need to in the future, bust it out and do more videos on it. So let me know if there's something else you want to see about the Powerstrike 24 besides modding it, because I don't want to do that, destroy this thing, but I'm sure there are some other topics we could discuss. I'm Walcom S7, thank you very much for watching this video. Of course, if you want to support me during these trying times when YouTube is absolutely paying nothing and get yourself some cool perks in the meantime, check out the link down below in the description and the pinned comments to my Patreon. $5 a month or more gets your name on my workbench for all to see, and then I blow it on stuff like this. I don't know how to do this. The Powerstrike way. But of course, I hope to see you in an entirely different way.
Can't you see I'm blazing? Still my heart is blazing. If the words kill me,